What's going on, YouTube? Time for another recap. So get into it like we always do. We start on the old X here. Our over under for the day, 542.18. That'll be the big over under. So we had a really nice anchor view app coming from the 11th here in the orange, and that was going to be our over under. Opened up at about 542.24. And that was our call down here, right? And we looked for, a direction from there. And I have one other start here. So we also had a high-low pre-market range where I wanted to see a little bit of a scalp here. We had a really nice one on SPY today. So we hit some big wins there as well. We'll get into and our last trade call, which is working out right now. I'm looking for the Fibonacci high, the pre-market high of SPY at 543.48 to short near here, cover at an intraday gap level, 542.94. So we should see that playing out relatively soon as we come into the chart. So there we go. So on the SPY, this is the last little remainder here. I said we're probably going to take a little bit past here. So the short scalp is going to be at this level. You're just going to let it watch it dance around. And so I said in my chat, I'd probably manage it up to all-time highs. It'd be about 5 points. So if you look back at all-time highs, you could just go 30-minute real fast, and you can see it's like 544 and change. There we go. So between, TOS doing TOS stuff. There we go. So between that little pop-up of highs and where we are shorting from, right here in this general area, you're only looking at like 5 points here on ES, like 50 cents, about 6. So we'll give it 6 points or so. So that's a pretty easy manage to be shorting into this area here, and then watching for a confirmational breakdown. And again, that's what we call during the trade as well. You're going to look for that confirmational lower high, and we will come back down to 542.94 there. So all you're looking for is trend underneath, okay? So the Fibonacci that I had here for some nice shorts, we had a really nice scalp here intraday on Qs as well with the golden pocket. So we don't have any algos this morning. We have no news. We have a holiday on the Wednesday for Juneteenth. We have a lot of slow volume quad witchings over. So we're not going to get a lot of interesting points of contact, right? So we're going to have to kind of dig for them, which no big deal. We have some really good anchors today, and then we had some really good Fibonacci. So after coming down to the half candle retrace, right? And you know us and our half candle retrace. So, which I don't have here. Let me throw on for you guys so you can see the overlapping levels. There we go. Daily. All right. So what I like to do is I always wait and watch for that half candle retrace. So what I do is we take this close here to the open of yesterday's body. We're going to change these purple for the sake of being able to see them a little bit through the other Fibonacci. So I did the body range of yesterday's candle, okay? And 50% is always a very, 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 very solid hit, right? And you're going to notice where the top pick is here as well. You're going to see where that resistance channel becomes right here. So as we called on Twitter, we're going to be getting this short played out all the way down to 542.94 here shortly. So here's the high low of that range. Okay. Boom, boom, goes a little bit lower on the box. 50 fib. Here's the golden pocket right here in the purple. So price action opened up, came into yesterday's daily bodies 50. Okay. So that's the golden pocket right here in between 38.20 and 61.8. So we've seen price action dip into there and did not give us any further leg down, right? So our over under level was about 542 and change, right? It was like 542.19 or so. And just look at the price action and the levels that we had called, right? So we did a little bit of a breakdown, came down, snapped into golden pocket, pushed up. What do? Created a higher high. So after a trend break, we look for a higher low to continue, right? Well, if we look where that higher low is, well, lo and behold, it's at 542.20. So that's our over under for the day, right? So we had a pretty good opportunity there to see this higher low hold up, and that's what we called as well as we pushed into those highs. Nice little dip back down. So that scalp for the pre-market high-low fibs, which is our colored ones, not the purple ones, the multicolored, we had a push from here right into the top. So I took a nice short deck down there and had a big Qs ride. Then it snapped back up, and then we called long 100% here over 5,500 for a different ES fib. So we got ES long. From this high-low range. It's on a different chart. We'll just redraw it. So this is the high-low range we were worried about right here, okay? And this was the long for 5,500. So this pushed up, and I like to fib out the 5 minute, jump down to the 1 minute so we can kind of see a little bit more intraday. Well, I always move it too fast because TOS is just such an old dinosaur platform that barely works. But we love it. We love the old dinosaur platform. So this short will be coming back down here pretty soon. And look at this minute chart, right? Here's your fib box. Perfect. Pushes back up, comes back down, golden pocket, and 5,500. Okay. So look at that higher low, all higher highs and higher lows on trend here on the 1 minute chart. And as long as that big psychological level of 5,500 held, I said we get a higher day and push. So that was our last long call. And then the short call that is working out right now, well, let's look at a couple different things that we can see here. Fibonacci 1618 from the high low on ES. There's our box. So we could fit a nice little pullback at 5511 area here. Pushed up a little bit, but it's still working. I don't think we're trending highs right now. I think through the afternoon we might get a little bit of a slowdown, maybe one more pop. But in this general area, it's going to take a long time. That's where we're done trading already. We try to hit that first volatile hour and a half, and then we tend not to worry about the rest of the day unless there's something to do on SPY. We don't like to waste time here. So coming into SPY, now, of course, let's delete the high-low fibs. Now we're only worried about the daily fibs. Now look at where those are. 1618 to the penny, 544, and, well, maybe a little bit past the penny, 544.02. So this is, again, yesterday's body. Okay, that's the box. Came down, price action, held golden pocket, pushed, higher low, just like ES, obviously, 10 to 1, and 1618. So yesterday's body produces a 1618 tag. Well, where does that go? Well, it has to usually retrace back down to the 100 fib after the 1618. So once we break over the 100 fib, which is right here, 542.80, we have a break to the 1618, and we generally can see a walk down back to the 100. So that's what we're waiting for right now, or rather playing, not waiting, into this resistance of the 1618 and our prior that we had on the high-low pre-market. So we don't have any back test really of a clean 5 minute set either. So let's look at some oscillation indicators real quick. Until the VIX, which we'll go over next, turns around, we're only purely waiting on these. There we go. So right now we don't have any clean back test of 200 SMA. We kind of, my drawing tool here, kicked up into here. This is the 200 SMA and the peach dash line you see right there. We never had a clean back test, right? We kind of pushed into it resistance, got that higher low for the long call, and that's perfectly fine. But we do need a back test of this 200 where it broke out of that 200 and generally likes to come back down and test and whatever it wants to do on that confirmational test, which produce a low or a high, depending on high, low, low, or high. Doesn't matter what it does. We just watch for it on the oscillation indicators. That's great. So let's look at some of the oscillation indicators helping us out here. RSI is hot at top of the day. It's looking for the lower high, lower lows. We're looking for it to go back down to the 50. MAC has zero oscillation. So everything is kind of giving you that rollover feel. But what's the problem? Well, this is one of the bigger problems, volatility index. VIX started really hot, and when they gap the VIX up overnight, they're just manipulating the price action so the SPY and Qs in the markets can range up a lot higher. So when we start up here into a +2 standard deviation, which is the red level you see up there on a custom script that we have, we got really close to that, and that's just generally not something you see out of the VIX. If you look back on multiple days, and it goes way back through the 5-day, 5 minute, whenever we get close to that standard deviation, -2 in the red there, +2 in the red there, and even the +1 in the yellow here, -1, 0 is obviously the gray line here. We have some pretty adverse effects, right? So we could be waiting for the VIX to fill the gap that it has from the overnight push from that little manipulation up. And we have two of them. So if you look at the after hours there, we do have a gap right here that needs to be filled on the VIX. And of course, the closing gap right here. So if we chart those out, we can say, okay, well, if the market wants to scam up and go against all indicators, right, and screw over the shorts and pop back towards all-time highs, well, that means the VIX has more room down to these gaps that are not filled yet here, until it wants to potentially start a reversal, because again, it did start extremely high, close to the over-purchased standard deviation +2. It's very rare that we see them outside of there. Now, again, not the biggest pain in the world. It's still a manageable trade here because, again, the indicators are really helping out. Just no volume for it, right? It's going to be a low volume week. It's just really hard to get these rollovers when we have such a short week. A lot of people just take off. Nobody's trading. Generally, they take the first half of the week off or last. Thursday, Friday, you take off. You get the extra weekend from Wednesday, and then you get a nice big one. So there's not a lot of people trading this, but still, it's a very good short setup as the oscillations occur. Now, if this does happen to push back up, the all-time high 544 and change, that would be my stop out, right? If it started really trending above highs and really start to kick out, well, then I would just stop out. Not the big of a deal. Right now we're 5 for 5 green. This is the last trade, hopefully 6 for 6, but we'll see how she manages. And like we said, if you look back here to the prior all-time high, and you look at that pre-market short level that we're looking at, you're managing barely 6 points there, and then you have an opportunity to downside. I think it's a little less, not quite a 1-to-1, but we will get back down to most likely the 100 fib here, so I'll give it that. So 6.8, and then the gap is at 5.5. So I would assume here as a resistance zone would work out. And then we could see that come down here to that pocket, the 100 EMA, and the gap all here. So in this general area would be, where's the blue? The cover. So I'd be looking for this. So in this general range, I would definitely be looking for that short. Anything under that all-time high, look for a little bit of a top. I'm not really looking for the blowout top. If it blows out top and goes and the VIX just trashes the whole time, well, that's perfectly fine. This is the last trade of the day, and it's really far into the afternoon, and this is not really my trade time. As the volume gets very crappy during regular trading, even with data and algos and all the good stuff, and now we're on a short week, holiday week, and extremely slow on top of that. So let's get into the anchors for the last part here and what we had scoop in. And what we were doing for the day. That's some really nice ones today on the anchors as well. Alrighty. So anchors, a lot of top-down blowouts, man. Ton of them. I was hoping for the 30-minute back test down. So like I said in the predictions here, we were looking for 542 and some change underneath, and then we could come back down to an anchor, but we ended up hitting the shorter-term anchor first here, and that was to the penny. And of course we had the daily fibs, as you can see here again. So here's that golden pocket that we talked about already. Here's that anchor coming up inside the lower golden pocket for double confirmation long, triple confirmation with the MAC long. So that's why we were so adamant on taking that secondary long up past 5,500 and letting her just range out before hopefully dumping back down before all-time highs and kind of back testing a lot of this. Now let's look at the anchors that need back testing here. Let's get to a single, get a little easier here. We'll start with Qs. So Q's back test is notably on the 30 here, okay? And we do need a back test of this eventually. Nothing's guaranteed, but the top down number one and yesterday's lows. Now notice we shied it here, so we left that little bit of a gap in action between the anchor, and on the 30 minute that happens a lot. That's why I usually like to go into the 5 minute or the 1 minute with these, but it is good to know where these are at. So the top down anchor was already hit one time on the 30 here. And we shied this one. So what do we do with that? Well, we hit the other bottom anchor. This is done and for support. So I would remove this and I would wait for two things. This anchor needs a back test. And why does it need a back test? Well, because we blew right through it right here. No confirmation of support. And generally we need a reset of pattern, a higher low, higher low, higher high setup, and a further oscillation to continue those longs. So we don't have the pullback for that yet. So this big old long range, what's the catalyst on a no data, no algo, no Fed speaks till later, no nothing to continue FOMO all-time highs? Pretty close to none, in my opinion, for psychological. We need a back test and we need price action, right, to do this higher low, higher high sequence before we head back up, okay? And on the SPY, these anchors today were pretty golden as well. I'm watching a few of them. The same thing persists for SPY. Now, we can move this one back and we can look at it the same way Q's is drawn. The pre-market high needs a back test, right? It has a blowout. There's my drawing tool. Through the upper anchor, this needs to come back down to said anchor from the pre-highs. Now, again, we have this one on live as well, so we move this one over. Same thing, and then our lows. So again, SPY's prediction, I wanted yesterday's lows because there's a shy right here on yesterday's price action of SPY on the 30. So this 30-minute low shied it and kind of just went ticking off to the moon, which is perfectly fine. We came out today, shied it again, and then we broke over the sentiment level. Now the level was 542.20 is just about, and that's our over under. If we are over that, you obviously look to the upside. If we are under that, we look to the downside. I was leaned a little bit to the short side, which no big deal. We obviously just looked at the indicators intraday and got out of the way of that. But if we go into the 5 minute chart, this is where it gets interesting here. 5 minute from the 30. Now this low a day on the 5 minute, again, this is why it works a little better than the 30. I only do 5 and 15 on these anchors a lot. We've been testing 30 here or there. This 5 minute is from yesterday's lows. And look at the 5 minute. To the T. To the T. Right? Golden pocket and the anchor. So again, 5 minute supreme, along with that MAC as well. So what are the anchors that need to be caught up? Well, if we move this high to prior high of day, and that's a back testable anchor. So same exact thing we were just talking about. Here's the high of day prior, obviously not this one. Anchor comes here, needs a back test. What happened? Flew right past, no back test. So all here in this little area of effect will eventually get a breakdown and come back down and chase these low anchors that do need back tests, because we have in the orange here, low of day number 1, higher low of day. We could even put one right here if you wanted to, but it's a few too many anchors for me. So I'm going to pay attention to the back test on anchor 1 and anchor 2, because that is low and higher low. Again, low, higher low. I have 2 anchors, obviously, on those leading to the upside. Now, the first one, we got a back test on anchor number 1 at the low, because the higher low anchor, which we have obviously used, almost tagged it. Now, again, it's more of a shy. It's not perfect. So the L goes there, not perfectly into that anchor. And I don't really look for perfect, but it's notable. You're going to want to notably remember that. And the rest of the catch-up anchor, which is the higher low, still needs to be tagged along with the back. So if we have the higher low anchor and the prior high of day anchor, both line 1 and 2 here do need a back test. So that is another catalyst that we're looking for in the anchors as the MACD develops, as we start to see the VIX hopefully cross. And that's the last piece of the puzzle on the MAC. So for the short to work out, whether this wants to, plow up and it tried 1, 2 down, and now it's just in consolidation, we're not looking for that easy rip up. Again, if it wants to scam out on low volume and go to all-time highs, that's totally possible. That's fine. It's a squeeze out. It'd be 1 red for 5 green on the day for trade calls. On this one, we do need to see a back test before that. So I'm looking for a back test of those 2 anchors, right? Support. And that's why we have the shorts up here, to fill the gap that we found on the minute chart. Shout out to James from our chat, because it is tiny. And it's never fun when they're really tiny like this, because they're harder to back test. See that guy right there? Tiny. Okay. 542, just about 94. So gap and price action. Gaps are my favorite thing ever. They tend to fill same day, probably 90% of the time, 85% of the time, SPY and Qs. We already had one on Qs, and that was our short target. Okay. I'll show you VIX for the last piece of this pie today, right after this. But we did have this gap right here on the Qs that had to come back down and fill right there. See this gap right here? So it's a little bit bigger of a gap. So 479 and 9 cents. Okay. And that was one of the other reasons that we took the short at golden pocket and hit a nice little green right here to gap fill, which is right here, intraday, and then plow. Okay. So it's the same thesis we're looking for those anchors. So as the short develops here, this is the last piece of the puzzle. MACD on the VIX. This has to cross and get out of its own way. So until the VIX has crossed the MAC to that upside, starts cruising back to the 0 line, right? Because we have all that room for the cross and to come back to the 0 line here, that will produce a nice short, and that's just another catalyst we're waiting on, okay? And now the only catalyst that can counteract that short is the gaps here that would be magneted filled, which means the price action up here on VIX is going to get drawn to the magnet of the gaps right here, and these will fill before we get the full breakdown of the market. Something like the dollar getting manipulated this morning in pre as well, as we announced in chat. If we look at the DXY, very similar. And that's hitting lows too, so we're going to get more scam up here in a second. I'm sure the market's going to break out because of this, but we're getting some very odd candling here where you'd see some really nice trend down, just beautiful dollar breakdowns, slam up for 10 minutes, 25 minutes worth of selling, junk, 15 minutes up, half hour to an hour selling, same thing, 15 minutes up, 10 minutes up. So we had a very big defensive point here at near 105, 543 or so, and that deviation did let go. So now we're in the bottom channel of the RSI. We're waiting for the dollar and the VIX to turn back around so the market will stop flooding back up. And that was the bias for the trade. Now, again, these trades, they take time to manage and work out. So nothing is going to just trade call and then in 10 minutes, it's going to work. In 2 minutes, there's no such thing in the market. The market will always do what it wants. And we just try to regulate the best we can. So we're still right on that short level right here. We still want to see some shorts under 480.75 here on Qs as well. So that is the top of their pre-market. So I'd like to see it break back down to there. We're obviously overextended here. We have volume area highs, and this has been overextended since the start of this breakup. Volume area highs is way overextended. We're way extended from POC here on the 1 minute. This is the point of control, highest of volume traded. This is the volume area high here. So we do need back test of volume area high and potentially, even further, even on Qs. And we've seen a lot of divergence. Let's come back to the SPY real quick because you can see that extension as well. There we go. And this one, oh, recalculated. We're not too far back. Okay, so we're way up here at volume area high. So again, this could easily scan back up because of that VIX magnet, but again, manageable to prior all-time high. So we are pushing right now to that 544.11. So this is all-time high. So if the low volume week wants to just continue melt on the scam up, perfectly fine, man. Just let it go. 5 out of 6 trades green today. And I hope that made sense. Now, keep in mind this gap, because it is a really tiny one, they are a little bit harder to fill, but eventually we will come back down and we will find this gap. So if this stays open, just mark it on your charts and we'll come back to there once the turnaround happens. So once that turnaround happens, whether it even be today, late day, and whatever trend permits, that will be the one. So again, you had tons of divergence here where all the RSI was telling you lower high, lower lows, perfect breakdown. We had volume beats here, sellers in control, MAC all the way down, and the market just went sideways, full scam. So a lot of manipulation hold here, no big deal. So the climb to all-time highs persists, but we will most likely still have a great chance at this a little bit later on. So let the afternoon go by. I wouldn't stop out again, like I said, on ES. That's literally no points at all in our book. If you're looking at the 6 points here to 6 points down, we're at the top of the 6 points. So until it starts trending above all-time highs like this and moving up and starting to get away from you at like 8, 9, 10, 11 point range, that's still very manageable in my opinion to watch out. And on trend and on everything else, we've already had a scam that, let's say, euro close was okay almost 45 minutes ago. So that was the big decision here, 10:30. So 10:30 even had a euro close breakdown where it's trying to shoot down a couple times there and it just boop, right back to pre-market high and scammed right out to manipulate the highs. So again, no big deal. Hope that analysis break down. Back to there we go. The chart works out for you. And for that continued short back test, again, the 200 SMA is something you're going to want to watch for on that back test. And then getting back through this orange zone, because we will have a chance to come back down to that 150, in my opinion, as the 1618 daily does become tested right here. This all-time high 1618 daily, that's going to be a super big over-under. So I still think we have a great chance right around that prior all-time high to take that short down. And again, if it just chops up a little bit, you're just going to have some crazy leg downs here, potentials later on in the day. And I just wouldn't quite let that one go yet. So keep an eye on that and tune in for the next recap. Thanks for stopping in.